Welcome to Autism Knows No Borders, a podcast where people connected to autism inspire change and build community. Together with the Global Autism Project, I'm your host, Rachel Harmon, a professional with over a decade of experience in the field of autism services, outreach, and advocacy. How do stressors like war and displacement affect how a culture understands neurodiversity? This episode is part 2 of my conversation with Hilai Nasib, where we discuss some of the unique challenges faced by Afghan families with autistic children. Originally from Afghanistan and currently living in Canada, Hilai Nasib is the mother of a 10-year-old son with autism. She advocates about autism on social media, hoping to destigmatize autism in Afghan communities. Among other things, we discuss the availability of autism services in Afghanistan, common misconceptions about autism within Afghan communities, the impact of stigma and religious beliefs on autism awareness, how to navigate cultural sensitivities as an autism advocate, Hilai's hopes for Afghan communities, and advice for parents of newly diagnosed autistic children. In this episode, discover what's possible when fear transforms into acceptance. And now I present you Hilai Nasib.
Thank you, Rachel. As we are speaking right now, there is only one center in Afghanistan so far that is dedicated to autism, and that center has just recently opened. I believe, if I'm not wrong, they either opened in 2025 or 2024. And so far, there has been only one news article that has covered autism in Afghanistan. That's only one news article. So there is a huge lack of support, organizations, understanding, awareness in our communities.
Yeah. So what do people in Afghanistan think autism is?
There is a huge lack of understanding, but they are beginning to understand. There is a beginning to understanding, to recognizing the early signs, to understanding neurodiversity. I think there is a slow beginning.
Okay. So what would you say are some of the most common misconceptions when people talk about autism?
Well, from personal experience, one of the major misconceptions, and again, this comes from lack of education and understanding about autism, is that our people, and I know this doesn't only pertain to Afghan communities, there are other people out there who think the same, that autism have a certain look. So when I tell people that Armin has autism, and I know this is very well-meaning and well-intended, but they turn to me and say, "What are you talking about? He doesn't look autistic. He doesn't look like there is something wrong with him. He looks absolutely fine to me." And I'm like, there is not a particular look to autism. Yes, he's very high functioning. Yes, when you first look at him, you might not suspect that he has these, he scripts to himself and he acts out cartoon scenes out in the public. You might not see that at first, but it doesn't mean that autism has a certain look. So that's a major misconception. The other misconception is that most people in Afghanistan do not understand neurodiversity, so they think that autism is a form of mental health condition. And again, I'm going to go back to saying that if they hear that, Armin has autism, they're going to think, there's something mentally wrong with him, so quote unquote, he's Dewana, meaning crazy. That's the other misconception that I have faced. Another one is Armin has autism because of poor parenting, or he behaves this way or that way because he is not well taught and not well behaved. He screams at a gathering not because he's having sensory issues at the moment, because they wouldn't understand that. It's because I haven't taught him well. I am bad at parenting, right? So that's another misconception. I was told by a very close family member this exact same thing that I'm going to tell you. You are a teacher yourself. You have educational background in psychology, and yet still you cannot parent your child well. Right? And I do not take that to heart because I do not blame them. I blame the history of Afghanistan, the war that's been going on in Afghanistan, the fact that our people has been displaced for so many years, the fact that they had to leave everything behind, start life from scratch in these other countries, the fact that they have to learn new languages, and there is no time for our people to learn about neurodiversity or mental health or other things because we have been so busy with creating a life for our families. So I do not blame Afghan people. I'm not here to accuse anyone. What I blame is the unfortunate condition in our country that's been ongoing for so long. Even right now, Rachel, as we are speaking, there's been a new recent news about Afghanistan, about women in Herat, which is a province in Afghanistan, where Afghan women have been recently detained because of not wearing hijab properly. And when I read that news, I was shocked. I was devastated, thinking that, what if I was one of those mothers? If I am detained because I am not wearing hijab or burqa properly, who is going to be out there looking after Armin? Who's going to be providing these therapies for him? Getting access to like therapies and support and funding and all that. So if Afghan moms in Afghanistan, if they can't live, if they have been silenced, if they don't have a voice, how are they going to support their children with special needs and autism? When are they going to find the time to educate themselves, to grow, to learn about autism? So it's unfortunate.
Yeah. Wow, you're absolutely right that there's other basic needs that aren't even being met. So how can they go beyond and think about someone else's child even who's not their own and be aware and have the space to learn if there's so many other stressors going on?
Absolutely.
So do you think though, and I understand that there's this context of the war that is keeping people focused on the necessities, but is there something else culturally that shapes how Afghan people think about mental health in general?
Absolutely. So in our culture and in most Afghan families, there is this huge pressure to protect families' reputation. So anything that is different, considered different, is supposed to stay hidden behind closed doors, behind private rooms, in private rooms. So what that means is that if Armin is autistic, that's going to affect his marriage prospects in the future. And if it's a girl, it's even worse, for instance, right? Who's going to marry our daughter? What if the family finds out that she's neurodivergent? So because of that protection of family's reputation, Afghans have this fear of discussing anything that's different, whether that is a different sexual orientation, it's a different type of being like autism. So that pressure keeps us silent. That peer pressure of protecting our families from people's judgment, from people's opinions about our families, that protection keeps us silent. But what so many families do not understand is that that protection itself is damaging our kids. It's not protecting our kids, it's damaging our kids. that protection is holding us from accessing resources, from seeking support, from seeking early intervention for our children. It is really damaging. So I think that's what it is. That's the cultural belief that is keeping so many of us to stay silent.
I see. So, how do you, as an advocate, navigate these cultural beliefs, like being respectful to the audience? I mean, it's your own culture, so I think, like, how do you address it to people knowing how they might respond?
Well, from a place of understanding. It starts from a place of understanding. I was one of them 6 years ago. I was in the same boat, having same fears, being ashamed, being fearful of, what was going on in my own house, right? So I understand them. It's not like I woke up overnight and said, you know what? That's it. I'm done with this. It took me a long time to get here. So I understand their journey. I understand their understanding, their patience. It's gonna take a lot of guts, a lot of effort, a lot of understanding and patience to get to where I am right now. So I have that understanding. I have that cultural understanding, and it makes it easier for me to go online and advocate, and putting my story out there, putting how it was for me, makes it easier for others to understand, you know what, this is something that she has been through. She understands what we feel like. So it makes it easier for people to come online and put their trust in my work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they know that it's a safe place where they can also express themselves without judgment.
Absolutely. Rachel, I don't go online and say, listen, forget about our culture, forget about the protection, forget about this, let's do this for our children, right? No, I acknowledge the cultural difference. I acknowledge the beliefs. I acknowledge whatever is shaping the understanding of autism in our culture. But at the same time, I'm trying to push for more open communications, for more acceptance, for more understanding and awareness.
Mm-hmm. So what kinds of changes would you like to see in Afghan communities in the next few years, over the next decade?
With this question, I want to answer it in two different settings, if you allow me, please.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Going to Afghanistan, because it's a whole different case in there, I would like to see more ABA centers opened in Afghanistan. I would like to see more advocacy groups opened in Afghanistan. I would like to see more centers for children with autism in Afghanistan. I want to see more media coverage of autism in Afghan families. That's what I wish and hope and want to see in Afghanistan, more of these centers, more advocacy there. And for my Afghan communities abroad, I would like to see more open conversations. I would like to see more parents, more and more Afghan parents advocating online, sharing their stories, although it could be very difficult, as we have already discussed. I would like them to begin conversations, even if it's not online. It doesn't have to be a huge leap. Begin those conversations with family members, with friends. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see more culturally informed resources for our families. I would like to see more autism-related resources in our language, translated in Afghani, translated in Dari, because we do not have equivalent of so many words in our language, in our Afghan community. So it would be more beneficial if we have resources written in Dari for people who have limited English language skills. I would like to see more support groups in our communities, parents coming together, putting these presentations together, going from home to home, putting flyers at the doors, educating Afghans about autism, about neurodiversity in general. And also, there is a pool of Afghan mental health professionals online that I have come across with, that I am connected with. I would like to see more of them using their expertise, using their knowledge, using their background, educational background, to spread awareness and acceptance about autism, using their big platforms that they have on social media. I think that would be great. I would love to see more of our religious leaders having sessions about autism in mosques, discussing about autism, discussing about what it is, that it's not a sin that the mom or the dad has created and autism is the result of their sins. It's not that. That's another misconception, that their child has autism because maybe they're not good Muslims, because maybe they're not practicing Islam in the right way. And I have had moms expressing that to me.
Wow. So there's like a shame also
Exactly,
there, where
shaming moms. Yep, absolutely.
these families, do they just keep their children at home then if they're more on the severe end of autism?
I have now a very close friend, and I know this amazing Afghan mom, Medina Michelle. She's the host of the Unfiltered, I believe it's called Unfiltered Afghan Not Dewana podcast. She talks about mental health in her podcast, and she's also a part of this mosque that she attends to in her community. So she has created this, I believe, a study group or a kind of group within her mosque to teach other parents about autism, because she also have a child with autism, and I believe her child is a little on the severe side of the spectrum, and she does advocate. But then I know there are other parents who completely avoid going to mosques with their child because there is no place for them in that mosque, right? Because people stare at them, because people see that as bad behaved, because people stop them at the end of when the prayer ends, to tell them that maybe you should pray a little more, or maybe you should recite this Quran verse for your child, or do this, or give to charities and stuff, so that God could cure your child of autism. And speaking of cure, that's another huge misconception that I forgot to mention earlier, that our people think that autism can be cured. That if you pray to God, if you, give to charities and all that, that God will listen to your prayers and cure your child of autism. What most don't understand is that autism is a lifelong condition, that it will always stay with the individual till the end of life. There will be improvements, there will be gains and wins for sure, but it's a condition that's a lifelong, right?
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty heavy. I mean, everything that you're sharing, because when people's religion is shaping their beliefs, it's very difficult to get around that, because the answer comes from above. Like the direction comes from above.
Right.
Like God is saying this about you and your family. And so it's really difficult. In some places like that we work, also Global Autism Project has partners in some countries in Africa where there is a very big stigma about autism and mental health, because people go to their priests for support, and then they're told that their children are possessed with evil spirits.
And Rachel, that is the case for some people in our communities as well, I would like to say.
Yeah. So I think it's really great that advocacy work is being directed towards those people in power, like potential priests or religious leaders, who can then spread the right information to the congregations.
Absolutely, because there is a lot of patience and love and affection for people with special needs and disabilities in Islam. It's not the religion itself. I do not want to give that impression that it's our religion. It's the people who perceive the condition as a form of punishment from God. It's not what our religion says, it's what some people, and I'm not saying all Afghans, right? It's some Afghan people who look at it from a religious point of view and say, oh, maybe their son or their daughter is like this because they have been punished from God. That's why it's extremely important to have these religious leaders involved in advocacy so that they could provide accurate information, like you said, about autism to families, so that they could educate other families about autism. And it would be amazing to have, these sensory rooms, these supports for people who have children with autism, Afghans who have children with autism, even other Muslims. It would be amazing to have these sensory rooms or these extra individuals who could take care of their children momentarily so that the parents could attend the prayer, so that the parents could have some time to sit down and, listen to the religious speak and all that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I know that this takes time, right? And what you're doing, the work that you're doing with planting the seeds, helping people feel like they can share their stories. It's like a ripple effect, right? Once you share, then they share, and then they're inspiring other people to share also. And that's how the awareness spreads. Because if no one is talking about it, how will people understand? How will people learn? Hey, Rachel here. I'd like to thank one of our listeners, Siva96, for reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts. They said, quote, highly recommend this podcast. All speakers are amazing and informed with diverse backgrounds. It really does bring the community together, and I loved hearing from speakers globally. I can't wait to continue to listen to more episodes. End quote. Thank you for the kind words. 5-star reviews like yours help us to continue spreading autism awareness and acceptance around the world. If, like Siva96, you're finding value in Autism Knows No Borders, please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. And now, back to the conversation.
I wanted to mention that I am very grateful, Rachel, that I have come across. It's been almost a little over a year that I have created Fresh.Soul, the Instagram account. And I am extremely grateful that I have come across at least more than 10 family members, I would say by now, who are openly discussing and sharing about their autism journey. And some of them had been doing that way before me. It's just that I didn't know about them and their accounts were private. But the conversation has started, I would like to say.
Yeah, that's great. So what gives you hope for the next generation of autistic children and their families?
I think seeing more and more parents discussing about autism openly in public. And when I say openly in public, it could be in their own circle of friends and within their own families or even advocating online. That gives me hope. More and more parents reaching out to me or agreeing to write about their autism journey on the blog. That gives me hope. We have this one amazing Afghan mom, Sabrina, who is an artist, but also have a daughter with autism. She also has a restaurant, and she uses her platform, she uses her restaurant to host events for Afghan parents with autism. And she's just began doing this work because she also just started advocating online about autism just around the same time that I began advocating. So when I see those events, especially events hosted by other autism moms, it just gives me hope. It tells me that there will be more and more of us, hopefully in the nearest future.
Yes. Yes, it's just the beginning and it can only grow from here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Hilai, I'd like to close with one last question. What advice would you give to an Afghan parent who has just learned that their child is autistic?
Well, first of all, I want them to know that they're not alone. There are other Afghan parents, Afghan moms, Afghan dads walking on the same journey as them. And I want them to know that their child is still the same child they loved before the diagnosis. Nothing has changed about that child. It's still the same. And I want them to know, to look at their child beyond the label, beyond the diagnosis. Their child has, yes, needs and weaknesses, but also their child has abilities, strengths, and I want them to focus on that as well. It's very easy to get stuck and get fixated on what's lacking. But I want to tell them that if your child can see, if your child has 2 hands, 2 legs, if your child can eat, be grateful for that, because there are thousands of children who cannot see, who do not have hands, who cannot eat. So just be grateful for that. And I want them to never, ever, ever compare their child with other people, with other children, because no 2 children with autism are exactly the same. Every child with autism has their own unique sets of challenges and needs and their own unique sets of abilities. Just because Armin can be independent, just because Armin is artistic, it doesn't mean that your child should be exactly the same as him. So never compare your child with someone else. Be grateful and continue learning, continue educating yourself, and continue accepting your child for who they are. That's what I would like to tell them.
Yeah, well, great message. And I think the work that you're doing, even recording this podcast and putting it out there, it's really going to make a difference. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
No problem, Rachel. Thank you so much for taking the time and for, again, giving me this opportunity to be here and to speak on behalf of many, many, many Afghan families.
Thanks for tuning in to Autism Knows No Borders. If you enjoy this podcast and you'd like to support our mission, please take a moment to rate the show and leave a review. You'll be helping us to continue spreading autism awareness and acceptance around the world. Thanks for listening. Take care.